Hello and welcome to yet another episode of me reacting to fan-made cards I found on the internet. And today we actually have cards from three different creators, and the first one is Star Trek 238. Uh, and he's the creator I talked about in the last episode as well. And he made another batch of cards that I want to talk about. And we start off with AI consulting. I think all of these cards are based on the Turmoil expansion, which you can immediately see with the first one, because in order to play it, either the scientists need to be the ruling party or you need to have two delegates there. It costs 11 and it grants 2 wild tags. And I think this card is insanely strong. Of course, only in the right scenario. Like if you draw this in the late game, it's probably not useful anymore. But if you draw this in the early game and you can get two delegates into the scientists, um, then this can be really, really strong because A, it's great for milestones. Just think about Builder, for example, on the base game map. It's already strong for that one, but on the expansion maps, there's like Rim Settler and Ecologist. And for these milestones, which require only a few tags, this card is absolutely busted. If you're playing, like if you get the prelude that grants you a wild tag, and then AI consulting, you already have Rim Settler in the back. That's also a reason why I don't like that milestone that much. Same with Ecologist, just because it's so swingy. These tags are more rare than building tags and also harder to get down because in the case of Jovian tags, they are really expensive, and in the case of green tags for ecologists, they are often hard to get down because of global restrictions. But if you get lucky, then it can be really easy to claim these milestones, and AI consulting would be one of the ways to get really, really lucky. Um, I think this is maybe a bit too strong, but the problem is making it more expensive just makes the card unplayable then. Like if this costs like 20, then I would never play it. We can compare it to research coordination, which costs 4. It grants 1 wild tag for 7 total cost, and this grants 2 wild tags for 14 total cost. So in that regard, it's completely balanced, but this also has a requirement, which makes it harder. So this is actually, like, in theory, a worse deal than research coordination. But I think just getting 2 wild tags at once is just so strong. You almost have the 3 required tags for NRA, you almost have the 3 required tags for AI Central. It's crazy good. I think this card is really, really strong. Probably a bit too strong to include into a deck. But I mean, as I said, it's only really good in the early to mid game, and then in the late game, this doesn't work on awards like all the wild tags. They don't work on awards. Um, and you probably don't need wild tags that much in the late game. Maybe if you want to play a late AGT, but if you need to pay 14 to then be able to play AGT, and it's in the late game, so you can't play that many cards afterwards, then AGT probably isn't even worth it. So this is really, really strong in the early to mid game, and afterwards it falls off, of course. It's interesting, but I don't think I would want it in my deck. But let's get to the next one. Next one is Staticism. I hope I pronounced that right. And it's interesting. It requires the reds, and the reds basically don't want anything to happen to Mars. They only have the one card where you get money based on empty tiles next to your tiles. So basically, they want to have Mars stay like it is. And it costs 6 MC, grants 1 point, and you get 1 MC for every card without any tax on it that you have in play. No, there's a red outline around this, so it means for each card with no tax in play, so also your opponent's cards with no tax. Because I was just thinking about that one card, I don't remember the name, but I will put it on screen right now. That grants money production based on the amount of cards that you have in play without tax. And that one is pretty bad in my opinion. It rarely happens that you have like a lot of cards without any text, because cards without text are normally not that great. You can't pay for them with steel or titanium, of course, because they are not building or space tags. B, they don't help on milestones. C, they don't help on any combos. And D, they don't get cheaper by like, for example, Thorgate, Director, Earth Office, whatever. There are a million like space discounts, like everything. And basically, cards without text combo with nothing except for this and then the card I just mentioned. So cards without text are often not that great because of that. And coincidentally, there are also a few cards without text that are just not that good. Like cloud seeding, for example, isn't that great. There are certain scenarios where you can play that, like, for example, Black Polar Dust. There are certain scenarios where you can play it, but it's a really unflexible card. If you draw it in the mid to late game, you probably never want to play it. So yeah. So I think this card has quite a low ceiling, because there won't be that many cards in play without tax. But if there are just like 3, 4, or 5 cards in play without tax, and you happen to have 2 delegates in the reds, or the reds are in power, and you see this in the draft, then it's a really cheap point that you can also play really late in the game. You can also, if you draw this for free, keep it in your hand until the last gen and play it then, and it might even like give you some money back, because by then there might, if you're like in a 3-player, 4-player game, there might even be a few cards in play without tax. So I think it's fairly balanced. It's not broken because it doesn't really do that much. If it was more common to see a lot of cards without text, then this could be broken. But in my experience, as I said, you don't play a lot of cards without text. So let's get to the next one. CFC factories. This requires the Calvinists in power, or 2 delegates there, of course. Costs 14 MC, grants a building tax, a negative point, and you get 6 heat prod for the expense of power prod. It's basically the biggest brother of the trio of GHD factories and carbonate processing, and I like it. If you get this in the early game, then it's a really, really good deal. Because why is GHD factories better than carbonate processing? Because you get more for that 1 power prod that you spend. And then it doesn't really matter that it's a bit more expensive. And with CFD factories, you get a lot more. 6 heat prod is not to be underestimated. Just if you play this in the first gen, you can get like 8 heat bumps out of this, 7 or 8 heat bumps out of this. That's crazy. That's really good value. And this negative point isn't that concerning if you play this early on. Of course, if you play this in the mid game, then this point might even be a detriment to you. But I think it's pretty strong. Problem is 2 delegates in this in the Calvinists. I mean, if you put 2 delegates in there, and then you play this, and the Calvinists get into power, you at least get 6 MC back, because whenever they get in power, you get MC based on your heat prod. So it combos really well off of each other. So I like this card. I think it's strong. Also, I always like it when we see more building tags that work together with the expansions, because building tags really get shafted by the expansions. There are not a lot of them. So yeah, nice card. I like it. Next one is, this one is really interesting. I love this card. Development incentives. Costs 1 MC as an event, so immediately if you're playing IC or you have media group down, this gets much better. It's a cheap event. Requires mass first in power, 2 delegates there, and it allows you to place 5 silver cubes on non-reserved areas, and whoever places a tile there gains 5 MC. And you can place these however you want, so they don't have to be adjacent to your tiles. They can be wherever you want. I think they can't be on oceans because you can't place anything on oceans. You also can't land claim an ocean spot and so on. But this is really, really funny because it's high risk, high reward. If you play this and you get all of these cubes yourself, then this card made you 25 MC for an investment of 1 + 3. That's insane value. And if you place these cubes somewhere where you normally would want to place your tiles anyways, then there's no downside to this. The downside comes with the fact that someone else can also claim the cubes, and that makes it really, really risky. Of course, you would want to play this card and immediately afterwards at least place a tile on one of the cubes. So let's say you start off the gen, you play this as your first action, and then you convert your plants to a greenery. You would always want to convert your plants anyways at the start of a gen, just so that no one can destroy your plants. And you just do this first, and you get 5 MC back. That's really, really nice. And let's say you're playing Ecoline and your opponent in a 2P game is playing Phobolog. They are not going for a ground game anyways, then this card is insanely good. But if you're playing Ecoline and your opponent is playing Tharsis, then this can really backfire. Like if you place it, let's say you place these cubes around your city, and you say, well, I will convert my greeneries next to my city anyways, and then I can collect this money. What if this guy has industrial center and nuke zone? He just stole 10 MC off of you. He wanted to place his tiles there anyways, probably because he wanted to annoy you with that with these tiles. Well, then this card really, really sucks. I like the concept. It's really fun. I think it's great. But you need to be careful with this card when you play it. The next one, Floater Pact. Requires Unimion power, costs 11 MC. Grants a Venus and a Jovian tag. That's really nice. I don't know whether we have a card in game that grants both tags. I don't think so. But if there's one, I will put it on screen right now. But if not, then I love the combination. All floaters on this card are worth a third of a point. And when you play a Venus or Jovian tag, including this, add a floater to any card. I recently learned that there are insanely few Jovian tags in the base game. Of course, if you're playing this, you're also playing with Turmoil, and also Colonies adds a few Jovian tags, but there aren't a lot of Jovian tags in the game. Same with Venus tags, because they are only in one expansion. So if you're playing with all expansions, which you should probably be doing if you play with this card, because you at least need Turmoil and Venus, then these cards still aren't that common. And the problem with Venus cards is that Venus cards mostly also aren't that great. Jovian cards are really specific. If you're going for a Jovian strategy and you have some card draw, then they can be really good. But like if you're going for a ground game or a strategy with a lot of steel prod or whatever, and you see this card in the draft, then it just does absolutely nothing for you. But it can be really strong, especially because you can add these floaters to other cards. And you also don't need to have this other card that you want to put the floaters on immediately. You can play this card, add the first 2 floaters that you get immediately on this card, and maybe play one more card and add a floater here to get the complete point. And then you play like something like Floating Habs, which has a much better conversion ratio than this one, and add the following floaters onto this card. So it can be really good if you have a nice floater card like Jovian Lanterns or Floating Habs, as I said. But on its own, or if you're going for a different strategy, then this card is basically useless. But I like the idea, and I especially love the combination of both of these tags. So yeah, it's interesting. And we get to the card for the greens. Costs 10, has a plant tag, grants a negative VP, and 2 plant prod. This is really, really good. if you find this in the opening hand, you basically always keep this because the greens are in power at the start of the game, always. So this means you can always play this first gen without any additional investment. And it grants 2 plant prot, which is insanely valuable. Compare this to, I don't remember the name, designed microorganisms, yeah. That also grants 2 plant prot. It has a bit of different tags. It has a science and a microbe tag, but it costs 16, so it costs 6 more. Of course, this card is a negative point, but I'm glad to take the negative point instead and get the same plant prot for less cash. 16 is a heavy investment, 10 much more manageable. Comparable to bushes. Like bushes gets you 2 plant prot. Of course, it also grants you 2 instant plants, but bushes is a pretty strong card, and this monoculture forestry should also be a pretty strong card, especially because it also grants a plant tag. Plant tags are really nice, and I would probably rate designed microorganisms higher if it had a plant tag instead of a science and a microbe tag. That's how strong I think plant tags are, just because there is insects and NRA, and it also works on ecozone, not only on decomposers. So plant tags are really good. And the thing is, the science tag on designed microorganisms is nice if you're going for a science strat, but often you want to play cheaper science tags on the way to, like AI, AGT, and so on. And you're not looking for plant prot, essentially. Like at the start of a science strat, you rather want to get more card draw and prot, and then really efficient plant producers later on when you have some discounts down. So yeah, I really think this is quite strong. I also like the concept because, yeah, a monoculture forestry project would give you plant prot, of course, but it also isn't great for the ecosystem, so it should give a negative point. So I really like the concept of the card. And it also says it in the flavor text down here. Low biodiversity, but it gets us the plants we need. Yeah, exactly. And then we have, I think, 2 more cards that are not based on parties, but also work together with the other concepts of turmoil. The first one is New Agenda. It requires that you are chairman, has an Earth tag, and is an event. So Earth tag is really nice for like Point Luna, Earth Office, and Director. And then the event tag is also really nice, Media Group and IC. We see the same combination on business contacts, and it's already great there. And this card is really interesting because it lets you exchange an unclaimed milestone or award. And that means that it's useful in the early game to get a really unexpected milestone. And I guess you can freely choose the new one, otherwise it would be horrendous. So let's say you're playing freaking Saturn systems on Tharsis. You normally have no milestone with that corp, and with New Agenda you can just switch out Builder for Rim Settler, for example, and get that one. Of course, it makes getting that milestone insanely expensive, but because you not only need to pay for the milestone, but also to play New Agenda. So if you have to pick this up in the draft and play it without any discounts or rebates, then it's probably not even worth it. Like, I'd rather get more development or card drawdown and try to score that way instead of playing this. Maybe like in a 5p game in a gen where you have nothing to do anyways, because the milestones are so contested in that version. But it's really hard to rate this if it's ever worth it. But like if you draw this for free in your Point Luna, for example, and there's no other way to get the 3rd milestone or even 1 milestone, then this can be really worth it. And then in the late game, the same for awards. Like in the late game, the chance that you have discounts, rebates, and draw this for free is higher, so it can be easier to play this. And especially in 2P, where an award is a 10-point swing, because you get 5 points, and in 2P the second player gets 0. It's really, really strong now. But yeah, it's expensive, hard to rate, but interesting idea. And especially if the opponent really, really worked for the last milestone, for example, and maybe like the last milestone is builder, and he played some questionable building tags, like Underground City, for example, even though he didn't need a city, just so he can claim the builder. And you can play this and grab another milestone to deny him that. Then this can be really, really devastating. But yeah, I think it's hard to get down. And the last one out of this set is Protests. It's again an event, really cheap. So cheap events, we like those. And it lets you add a neutral delegate to any party. We had this a few episodes back already, cards that let you play around with neutral delegates, and I really like the concept. Quite sad that there is no card in the official Turmoil pack that lets you place neutral delegates. I think the concept is cool. It absolutely makes sense with this card, that protests lead to more delegates in a certain party, and they are not controlled by the playing corporations. That absolutely makes sense. And I really like the concept. If you draw this for free, then you will find a time and place to play this in 99% of games. It doesn't help you get chairman, but it helps you make sure that the party that you like the most wins. And if you draw this for free, then it's extremely cheap, and it's almost always worth to play to get a bonus that you want. And yeah, I really like this idea. And yeah, let's get to the next set of cards and see what we have there. All right, to change it up, let's talk about another fan-made corporation. And this one was made by JarKiller33. I hope I pronounced that right. I will put the name on screen as always, and as always as well, I will put the links to the original Reddit posts in the description of the video. So please check them out, leave them an upvote. I really appreciate that so many people, especially on the Terraforming Mars subreddit, are creating these custom cards and corporations so I can react to them. And this corporation that he made, it's called Mars 8. And I think this is a more interesting, not more interesting, but an alternative to UNMI. It's really similar to that, but it plays differently, and I really like the concept. Why is it similar to UNMI? Well, first of all, it has the same amount of starting capital for the MC. Instead of an Earth tag, it has a building tag, but it also has an action that lets you increase your TR, but there's a caveat to that. And the action is choose an opponent with at least 6 MC. They may pay 6 MC to gain 1 TR. If they do, gain 4 MC. If they don't, gain 1 TR. So you choose another player. You tell them, hey, you can pay 6 MC and increase your TR. If they do that, you get 4 MC yourself. So you basically just made 4 MC. And if they don't do that, so if they don't increase the TR, you get a TR. Of course, you would rather get the TR because 1 TR is worth more than 4 MC. And to prevent that, you just choose an opponent that has no MC left. Let's say you just stall, like in a 2P, you could just try to stall out your opponent. And when he already passed, or when he has just like 2 MC, you use your action, choose him, and he can't even increase his TR, so you get your TR for free. To to counteract this, the action says choose an opponent with at least 6 MC. So first problem here is, what is if you're second in the gen and your opponent immediately uses up all of his money? Maybe he has an insanely expensive card like IO Mining or Demo's Down, and they play that and they have no money left or less than 6. Then you can't use your action. So that makes this pretty weak immediately. And the other problem is, if the opponent chooses to increase their TR for 6 MC, you get 4 MC. So it's basically a swing of 10 MC, but they get a TR for it. Is that worth it? I probably would say that I'd rather have a corporation that gives just me a benefit instead of that. Because maybe the 10 MC are a bit more valuable than the TR, but it's not by a huge margin. And I think it would happen often enough, and the part down here would happen not often enough for this to be great. Of course, if your opponent doesn't increase his TR for 6 MC because maybe they have planned out their move like insanely tight and they need these 6 MC, and you get the TR for free, then this is just better than UNMI and really, really good. But it probably won't happen that often. Especially like in the last gen, you can probably never use this because your opponent, like in the last gen, it happens very often that you have 6 or more MC left over because it just doesn't work out that perfectly that you use all of your money. And then your opponent will always take the extra TR because if you have money left at the end of the game, you would give all of your money away for just 1 point, just to make sure you have a point more than your opponent. So I think this corp is not that strong. The lower part of the ability is really good, but it won't happen often enough for this ability to be good. And it has low starting capital, and the building tech is okay, especially on Tharsis, but not good enough. I like the concept if you could use your ability on someone who has less than 6 MC. This would obviously be stronger, but it would be really annoying because that would mean that Mars 8 would always try to stall you out, would always one action, and it will just drag the game on forever. It will also mean that stall actions would get really, really good or like increase in value. So if you see tardigrades in the draft, you would always pick it, no matter if you're Mars 8 or if you're playing against Mars 8, just because the game becomes a stall fest. So I like that they chose with at least 6 MC. But I think they could increase this to 8 MC, make it more expensive for the opponent. So they really have to work to prevent you getting a free TR. And that would make this corp a bit better. You could alternatively just increase the money, but I actually pretty like it. I actually like it that this is so similar to UNMI, and for that we need the 40 MC. But maybe you could like exchange the building tech for wild tech. That would immediately make this corp much stronger. But yeah, interesting concept. In my opinion, probably a bit too weak and inconsistent. But yeah, let's get to the next pack of cards. Okay, and the last pack of cards are all centered around ocean placements, and they are all made by Snob1001. Again, check out the post in the description. And the first one here is called Canal. It costs 19, requires 3 oceans have been played. Requires that either Mars first is in power, or I guess that you have 2 delegates there. Doesn't say that in the text, but normally this requirement also includes that. It grants a building tag, and it lets you place an ocean on an area not reserved for oceans, so similar to Artificial Lake, and grants 3 points. So I have a few problems with this card. First of all, it's just too good value. 19 for an ocean and 3 points. That's similar value to Lake Marineris, and just for one more, it's just one more expensive. So why is, and also it has a building tax, so you can pay for this with steel in the mid to late game. There already aren't a lot of building tax that grant you a lot of points for the mid to late game. So this already is really good. But it's way better than Lake Marineris, and Lake Marineris is already an insanely good card. Why is it way better than Lake Marineris? The thing with Lake Marineris is it lets you place oceans, but is reliant on the heat track being at a certain point. So it's entirely possible that the heat track maxes out and at a point where there are no oceans left to place. So it could be that you pick up Lake Marineris in the early to mid game and you're never able to play it, or you can play it, but you don't get to place the oceans because the heat moves so slowly, or the oceans get placed fast. The thing with Canal is it lets you place an ocean based on oceans. So you basically always can play this for full value. And for full value, this is insanely good. Of course, if all oceans are placed and you draw this, then you don't get to place the ocean. But even then, 3 points for 19, if you have loads of steel left over, it's still good. And you can play this. Like you can also play Artificial Lake without placing the oceans. So it's possible to play this. And even then, it's great value. Of course, it has an additional restriction of Mars first being in power, but you can just place 2 delegates there. Normally, I don't know if but then this should be specified in the text as well. This is just too strong. A card that lets you increase heat based on heat, increase oxygen based on oxygen, or place oceans based on oceans, that is really good value, shouldn't exist. It should be based on something else. Of course, thematically, it makes sense that it's placed on oceans because a canal should connect oceans. But you could also make it harder. So you could say it needs to be needs to connect 2 ocean tiles. Like it needs to be adjacent to 2 ocean tiles, but itself not be on an ocean tile. Of course, that's already where you would want to place this, but it's at least a little bit more difficult to play then. It makes more sense thematically because a canal should connect 2 oceans or 2 lakes or whatever. And it makes it harder to play. But yeah, you should probably just tone down these points. Like with 2 points, it's probably fine because then it's 3 MC more expensive than Artificial Lake. I think Artificial Lake is 16. Has more an additional requirement, but 3 oceans is easier than the heat, and it grants 1 more point. So I think with 2 victory points on the card, it would be okay. With 3, it's just too much in my opinion. Let's get to the next one. And the next one is again an ocean tile that requires oceans. So we can be skeptical about this, but this one's fine, I think. It's good value, really, really good value. It's an ocean and a point for 13. That's compare it to Subterranean Reservoir, which is just an ocean for 11. This can also be paid for with steel. It has a funky requirement that a Subterranean Reservoir doesn't have. But it's just marginally better. The 1 point is just marginally better. You being able to place it on an area not reserved for an ocean, of course, is also an upside in most cases. But I think it's fine. It's an interesting idea because these Subterranean reservoirs are if I remember this correctly, they are lakes right next to the ocean with only small land bridges, which you can also see on this picture. And they happen sometimes in real life, and why not also on Mars? So yeah, makes sense. But yeah, there's probably not much to talk about this card, but there will be for the next one, and the last one of today's video, called Martian Harbor. This is really interesting. So this costs 17, requires 4 oceans in play. It's a building tag, and lets you place a tile. The tile needs to be adjacent to an ocean, but it can't be on an area reserved for an ocean. So it needs to be on a normal land tile. And it grants 1 VP per adjacent city tiles. So you would like to place this next to city tiles, and also you need to place it next to an ocean. So it's kind of hard to place this perfectly. But if someone like on Tharsis places his city in the regular east spot and wants to place greeneries around it, you can really annoy him by placing this Martian harbor in the elbow, where he would like to place his city, one of his greeneries, snack away the really good placement bonus and get a point for that. But there's a caveat to it. Because when a player places a tile adjacent to the Martian harbor, they get 2 MC prod. And that's for everyone. So if you do that to someone, you place this next to his city and deny him a really good conversion spot for his greeneries because it's next to multiple oceans, and he then places greeneries around it, he gets MC prod, which can be really good in the early to mid game. Of course, if you do this in the late game, the MC prod doesn't really matter anymore, and you just take the points and snack off his great conversion spot. Especially if you have leftover steel, this can be really good. But what would probably be also a good way to play this is in the early game. If you get like 2 oceans down early on with something like Ice Asteroid or Great Aquifer, for example, you can place this next to it and then convert your next to the oceans and convert your greeneries around it. Not even place a city next to it. Just convert your greeneries around it, and every greenery that you place around it gives you 2 MC prod. That's really, really good. That's like you get the ocean rebate with Martian Harbor and create an additional rebate spots around them, around the harbor. That's really nice because you turn like one good rebate spot into multiple good rebate spots. Of course, you also run the risk of someone else benefiting off of this. So as with one of the earlier cards in today's video, the one that let you place these cubes, you should place this Martian harbor and immediately place at least one more tile next to it. Or you should be sure that your opponent, for example, if he's playing Phobolog, isn't placing a lot of tiles. So yeah, I really like this concept. I'm not sure how, because it's a really complicated card, I'm not sure how strong it is. But for me, it feels about right. Because it has upsides, like it gets points, it's a steel, it's a building tag that you can play in the late game. It lets you place a tile, which is usually really useful, but it also has downsides. Like if your opponent places tiles next to it, he can get MC prod. It means that you can't like just place it next to his city. If you can place greeneries around it, it will get MC prod and so on. So it's a really interesting card. I love it. And of course, the flavor text. Great idea on that one. I love it. So yeah, I really enjoyed these cards in today's episode. I hope you did as well. Please check out the description and take a look at the Reddit posts. These guys also posted a few other cards, I believe, in other Reddit posts. So check those out. And yeah, if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and consider subscribing, as always. And let me know your opinion in the comments on these cards. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Have a good one.